Hello everyone. Thank you for joining me today. This is um, Nourition, the functional dietitian and a nutritionist specializing in digestive issues. And today is episode number 22 of my show, Thank God It's Fixed. So excited for being here. I know I have missed a few weeks since June, and we're starting now in August in another month. And in today's episode is going to be on the foods that cause bloating and gas, and actually you will find out some unexpected and healthy foods that cause bloating and gas. So they may not be, you may have some guesses already, but there will be some more that you may have not realized. And the other, so in today's episode I'm going to be talking about how do some foods cause bloating, and what does that really mean, and what does that tell you about the health of your gut? Of course, what these foods are, and I want to tell you more about what can you actually do with this information that I'm going to be sharing with you. So if you are here listening, just say wave or say hi or tell me that you can hear me so that I can get started. I know it's a personal topic, so sometimes people don't want to share that they are gassy or bloated. You can give me a thumbs up or a smiley face if you agree about that. But we're going to get started with the episode right away. So, what are the foods, unexpected and healthy foods sometimes, that cause gas and bloating? So, um, what is going to happen is that certain foods, they are going to contain fibers and sugars. Natural sugars, we're not talking about, bad sugar for you, but natural sugars that are going to be fermented by the bacteria in your gut. Now, fermentation, what does that mean? That means bacteria taking up some sugars and carbohydrates and breaking them down, and that's their food. And as they break them down, the body they're going to produce carbon dioxide, hydrogen, methane, and maybe some other gases as well. So these, in a healthy gut, in a gut that has the good bacteria and bacteria in the right place. So these are two important things. You want fermentation to happen, and these foods that contain the fibers and the natural sugars are actually going to be good for your gut health. They're going to feed the right bacteria. So now this bacteria is going to help boost your immune system and help you fight pathogens. They are going to help you extract nutrients from food. They're going to help you make vitamin K2, and I have a whole article about that I will share in the comments below. These bacteria are going to, as I said, help you fight the pathogens and keep your immune system in check. And this is exactly what we want them to be doing. And these foods, I talked about them in episode 11, these are prebiotic foods. Now, prebiotic foods, or the foods that contain these fibers, are good if you have a healthy gut. Now, the problem when it becomes an issue for bloating is that your gut is not healthy to begin with, and now you eat those foods, and then boom, explosion happens really, and then you have the bloating, and then you reach a threshold where it becomes really a problem and severe and painful. So what are the problems in the gut that could make you unable to tolerate these foods? These are healthy foods. Number one, you may have bad bacteria in your gut. So these bad bacteria, when you give them food and you give them fuel, they're going to outgrow, and you have dysbiosis. So they're going to grow on instead of having good bacteria grow. The second problem is that you could have bacteria in the wrong place in your gut. So the majority of the bacteria, and I've said that multiple times in previous episodes, that the majority of the bacteria needs to be in the large intestine or the colon. If you have too much bacteria in the small intestine, now this is going to be a problem, because really the fibers and the sugars should travel to the large intestine, no fermentation, because our human cells don't have the enzymes to break down these fibers. They should travel through the small intestine, and only when they reach the large intestine, fermentation happens. And I forgot to mention also, part of the fermentation is that they produce compounds called short chain fatty acids, and these are going to be healthy compounds and nutrients that feed the cells that line your intestine. So this should only happen in the large intestine. But if you have too much bacteria in the small intestine, this is a condition called SIBO, or small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, and I talked about that on episode 16. And in this case, then you're going to have bloating issues, and these foods are going to become a problem. Now, the other thing is when you have dysbiosis or the wrong types of bacteria, some of those bad microbes are going to produce toxins, or we call them endotoxins. One of them is called LPS, lipoprotein saccharides. And what they found is that this LPS creates free radicals in the gut. We've all heard of free radicals, this and that, and related to inflammation and heart disease. And the wrong types of bacteria are going to produce these free radicals in your gut, and then that's going to cause more symptoms. So if you have hair loss, if your skin feels dull, if you feel that you have brain fog or skin issues, or maybe memory issues or fatigue, muscle pain, joint pain, that could also be related to feeding the wrong microbes in your gut. So plus also the additional gases and the fermentation that's going to prevent your cells from doing their job of breaking down your food and absorbing the nutrients. So you may end up with nutrient deficiencies. So you may not be absorbing your B vitamins or your selenium or zinc or amino acids or even iron, and that could contribute to the fatigue issue, to the hair loss, and other issues that may be bothering you about your health. So you really have to ask yourself, is this bloating something that is, casual here and there that, I should ignore and normal? Or is this bloating reached a point where it is affecting my life? Is it a sign that something else is going on in my body? Is it a sign that this is my body's trying to tell me something? Is it a sign that you have dysbiosis, or a sign that you have leaky gut or any other problems that may need a little bit more of more attention than just BNO or just casually passing them by? And I also wanted to point out that sometimes the issue is bloating, but if you start to feel gassy or that you're burping or you're belching a lot, that's just your gut is trying to get rid of those gases. So these are all related to the bloating, the same issue. And also stomach pain, because imagine like your gut now is blown, there's too many gases, and that pressure on the inside of the intestine can cause cramping and stomach pain in any part of your stomach cavity. So now to the information that you want. Okay, what are these foods? What are the foods that are going to cause a bloating? So the first one is foods that contain lactose and dairy. So lactose is in milk, in soft cheeses, in yogurt. I'm going to talk about dairy next week, so I'm going to save that for a full episode, but I just wanted to point out that lactose is one of the natural sugars that is going to cause fermentation in the gut and can be a problem for you. Now the next food or food category are fructose containing foods. So fructose can come from high fructose corn syrup, which is not good for you, and rice syrups and other types of syrups in processed foods. But fructose can also be found naturally in fruits. Now it's found in a lot of fruit, but it becomes a problem if there is more fructose than glucose. Then the fructose stays longer in the gut and it feeds the bacteria in the gut. So some of the foods that tend to be higher in fructose include apples, pears, dates, peaches, snap peas, asparagus, and honey agave as well too. So again, some of those foods like asparagus, we talked about it, it's a prebiotic food, but it can create a problem in the wrong gut. The next one is garlic, onion, shallots, and leek. These foods also contain fibers that can create a problem. You may be confused if fermentation is good or bad for you. Fermentation is good if you have good bacteria, not good if you have the wrong bacteria. The other food group or category is wheat, rye, barley. Now you might think that, oh wait, it's gluten foods. Gluten is a protein, and the fermentation happens from just the light turned on in my office. That's interesting. So gluten is protein, and this fermentation that we're talking about is actually fiber and carbohydrate fermentation. So it happens that these foods that contain gluten also contain these fibers. So just don't get the two confused. And these fibers are called galactans or oligosaccharides. Again, these are larger molecules of fiber that are hard to digest. We don't have the enzymes to digest them. The bacteria do. But if we have bacteria in the wrong place, the wrong bacteria, they're going to cause that problem. I've said that, I know, many times so far. The next category are beans and lentils, including soy, chickpeas, and hummus as well too. So again, the same types of fiber, the oligosaccharides, these are going to create problems. And the other part of these is they also contain this beans and lentils group. They contain lectins, which are certain proteins that are found on the outer layer of the beans, and they are actually proteins that trigger the immune system. So in certain people who are sensitive, especially if you have an autoimmune condition or people with already digestive issues, these lectins can create even more problems and create an inflammatory response in the gut. So your body is going to have a hard time. We don't have the enzymes to break them down. We need to get rid of them. So the body is going to have a hard time with them, but the bacteria in the gut is going to ferment them. Certain nuts can also have these fibers, like cashews and pistachios. And also sometimes I find from practice that peanuts and almonds, too much of them, can cause bloating. And the last category is foods that contain polyols. So these are things like mushroom, celery, cauliflower. Too much avocado, too much coconut can be a problem. Apples, watermelon, blackberries tend to have those. So apples tend to actually have different types of fibers that can cause the bloating. And also any foods with sugar alcohol. So if you've ever used xylitol, mannitol, sorbitol, or these that are found in sugar-free foods and sugar-free chocolates and gums, these also are easy for bacteria to ferment, and they are going to cause the bloating. So this was the rundown for all of those lists. I will definitely have this posted on my website. So if if you're having a hard time writing notes, you could play this video again, or you can go to the website. I will put the link eventually below in the comments so that you can read it and have the whole list. So should you eliminate the foods that cause bloating and gases and similar and these symptoms? So after listening to this video, I am pretty sure you might decide that, okay, let me eliminate these foods. And also I forgot to mention that these foods, these are all collectively, we call them FODMAPs, fermentable oligo, di, and monosaccharides, and polyols. You don't really need to know the name. Some people call it food map, FODMAP. It doesn't matter, but these are just the collection of these types of fibers and sugars. And this is based on research that has been done for several years now in Monash University in Australia. So the diet is called, eliminating these foods, the diet is called a low FODMAPs diet. So you eliminate those foods, and it's supposed to help with the bloating. And think of it as also like a bucket. The more of these foods you eat, the more they can create a problem. But if you reduce the amount of foods that you eat, you may see improvement in your bloating as well too. So after listening to this, you may decide to remove these foods. You may even have tried a FODMAPs diet. Maybe it worked for you, maybe it didn't. I'm going to tell you what to make out of this information and what to actually do to use this information. So I highly suggest let's try. If you have bloating, you've never heard of this diet, you've never heard of these foods, let's take them out. Take them out for 1 to 2 weeks. 2 weeks is enough time to tell you if it's going to work or not. It either works or it doesn't work. And as I said again, it's if you even remove half of them, 50% of the time, 50% of the foods, then you should still be able to see an improvement. Now, I want you to know this, and this is really important. This is not a diet that you want to follow for the rest of your life. You are removing really important fibers that are going to feed good bacteria in the gut. So this is only a short short-term temporary solution. And you have no idea how many patients who come to me and they have been following this diet for 9 months, for a year. They were given a sheet at the doctor's office and said, hey, eliminate these foods, remove those foods, see you next year, or maybe see you never. So the problem is that you are while it may help, you're actually creating a situation where you're not feeding bad bacteria, but you're also not feeding good bacteria, so you're missing out on this nutrition. You're missing out on vitamins, minerals, antioxidants. So it's just temporary until you figure out what is the true cause, what is really the problem that is happening in your gut. Now, how do you figure that out? Well, two things are going to happen. If you follow this plan, remove these foods for 2 weeks, and you get some improvement in your symptoms, then all right, we're getting closer to figuring out what's happening. And you have to ask yourself, why is my body having a hard time digesting these foods? How come my mother or my sister or my friend or my neighbor, they can eat these foods and they're perfectly fine, and my gut is not tolerating it? So that's the question. And then you have to work harder to see, do I have the wrong bacteria? Do I have in dysbiosis? What is going on? What is it? How is my digestion? So many things go into that to be able to assess your digestion. So it's a big question, and too many things can. There are too many branches, sort of, but that's where the real work. That's where the real and the lasting results will be. Now, if you follow this plan, and I've met a lot of people, I worked with a lot of people who have tried the FODMAPs. They're like, it just does not work. I tried it. I stuck with the plan 100%. I still have my bloating. What do you do if that's your case? If that's your case, then there's definitely something else that is causing your symptoms. So you may be eating something that is safe or okay, like blueberries should be okay. They don't have FODMAPs. Chicken, salmon, or maybe let's just say turmeric should be okay. But any of those foods can be triggering a food sensitivity, and maybe that's why this is fermentation is not your biggest problem, and that there's something else happening in your gut. So you definitely at that point have to address the underlying causes and the root causes of that bloating. So you may have the fermentation from eating these foods, you may have something else, you may have a combination, and then you would have to really figure that out if getting rid of bloating long term is really important to you. So I hope this was helpful and it gave you some guidelines and some like some tips or some strategies for things to try to do to reduce your bloating. Take these foods and try to eliminate them and see what happens. I would love to hear from you. I'm going to put the links for some of the episodes or the resources that I mentioned in the comments section, and on my blog I will link to those. Now I would love to hear from you. Do you eat any of those foods on regular basis? Do you feel that they affect you, or how do you think they affect you? Or maybe you have tried the FODMAPs diet, or have you heard of it? I'd love to hear from you what your experience is, and if I'm able to help you, I will definitely share these answers. If you know that your problem is already difficult and challenging, and you know that you want an individualized approach, reach out to me. I do this every day. I help my patients whether with figuring out the root causes and the problems. So if you're ready for something like this, I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for the comments and for joining me today, and I will see you next week. Next week I will be talking about dairy, the lactose intolerance versus dairy allergies. So make sure you tune in next week, same time. Have a great day. This is Nour Zibda, integrative and functional dietitian, and I'll see you next week.